Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Hashtag Product Design podcast. As always, for those of you who don't know or couldn't guess by the title, this is a series of talks where I'll be picking the brains of industry experts exploring different topics within product and design. I have the pleasure of being joined today by Lena Kul, and today we'll be exploring the topics of Miro as a business and how it's contributing to the design community, and also what level of design craft is required to work at Miro currently. Lena, again, pleasure having you on here. Please could you start by giving a quick overview of your career so far?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's a big pleasure for sure. So yeah, basically it's been quite an interesting journey. I started, as most of the people started, I guess, in tech recruitment, hiring backend engineers and going through this tough part of the business. It's been fun, definitely. This is where you truly, find the skill of selecting without knowing what you're actually looking for, right? So this is something that I got to know. It's been very interesting, but then I got an opportunity at N26 to actually go as the solo recruiter into the design and build up the team. We were in the hyper growth. So within the year, we scaled from 20 people to 60 people, starting from mid-level, ending up at the director level pretty much. And truly, yeah, I found my passion in design. It was really, really interesting. I got to join all the rituals. I got to actually understand what the good portfolio means, what the not so good portfolio means as well, and what really differentiates those things. And afterwards, smoothly, I moved into Miro. Miro was also in the hypergrowth. We didn't scale as much yet, still doubled the team within the year. So it was an effort of the small design team. So I also got a chance to actually lead the effort of several people, which has been just an amazing experience. And so now I am leading the design hiring across leadership and also IC roles at Miro in Berlin and Amsterdam.
Cool. Well, yeah, look, obviously, I know you very well, but yeah, it's good to get an overview of obviously your career so far as well. Yeah, look, I think we shared the same sort of path into tech recruitment. Let's say I too started off in engineering and found, I think probably about 2 years ago, really a passion for transition into design recruitment. Obviously it's slightly different. I know you've been internally recruiting for companies. I'm obviously an external partner, but yeah, I think I certainly share the same passion for you in product and design recruitment. I certainly enjoyed my transition into it, and yeah, I think it's a very exciting industry to be in right now for sure.
Very difficult for sure.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, look, I know you mentioned obviously Miro's growth so far. I pulled some statistics before we jumped on just to give an example of a few bits. So I think in total, I think you guys have grown by 328% in the last 2 years, which is pretty good going, I would say. With over 1,000 employees and 11 hubs across the world right now. Funding wise, I think the last was Series C in 400 million, having a total of 476 million now, which is again very good going for sure. And I think the most notable point I wanted to make really was, I think since April 2020, you've increased your user base by over 500%, from 5 million to 35 million now. I think there's no coincidence necessarily. Obviously, Miro is a great product; it's very innovative, but I think there's no coincidence that COVID obviously had a big impact. I think April 2020 was pretty much bang on, certainly in the UK when it first sort of hit and we all went into lockdown and had to work from home. Miro obviously offering a very collaborative space to be able to do lots of things from a remote working space, certainly, and I think it's no coincidence that those numbers have obviously come from that as well, and COVID actually had a very positive impact on your user base for sure. But yeah, in terms of the topics we wanted to cover off today, obviously certainly Miro as a business contributes to the design community. I think Miro has obviously grown massively as we've discovered in those statistics. I think it's very helpful not only in the design community. I think it's very helpful across different spaces, but obviously design community being the most relevant to us today. So yeah, first sort of question or topic we wanted to cover off was, what's your viewpoint at the moment? What's the contribution of Miro in the design community through the product right now?
Yeah, definitely. That's a very good question, because indeed, lots of people actually perceive Miro as a design tool, which is not necessarily how we perceive ourselves. And this is not necessarily the entire functionality that we offer. But as a person who is hiring designers, I have not had even one call in 1.5 years when the designer didn't know Miro, didn't use Miro, and didn't say I love Miro. So there is a definitely, a very strong correlation of the output of the design work and Miro as the tool where they bring everyone together and really kind of, find that collaboration point. But I think what's really great that Miro is one of those products that's not only, talking to the users that pay for the licenses and enterprise account, it's surely the community, right? And so the good example for it would be Miroverse. If you are a designer or an agile coach or a user researcher and you came up with a very good template, for example, that you believe will bring the value to the rest of the 35 million people who signed up, you can actually upload it into Miroverse, right? And everyone can pick it up, leave kind of feedback and truly, improve that. And I find it so useful and so amazing. And there are always kind of, topics of like, the best template for the week. And then there is a little bit, not the competition, more like a reward and acknowledgement of the best effort done. And I think that's what makes it really, really interesting to be a part of the Miro community. At the same time, I think it's just so great that lots of the feedback from users is not necessarily being only searched proactively, but lots of designers and user researchers come back to us, people who truly know the topic, people who build in other products as well. And they say, hey, it's great, but like, how about this? And how about that? And for us, it's not just, oh, let's talk to users, but never do anything about it, right? We take it seriously. Our roadmap is so fluid in that regard, right? Because we are building the product for the users. We're extremely design-driven company. I think that's how we bring actually that most of the value to the design community. And the third aspect, what I see is just how many people get a chance to, have this platform for talking, for, just getting to know each other and really collaborating together from the design world because of Miro. So that's pretty great as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think the really interesting concept, certainly from a design perspective, and I think why so many people want to work for Miro at the moment is because it gives them a chance to essentially be the designer of a tool that they're also the customer of, right? And it's very, very rare that someone would get a chance to work on that. Because there's tons of really cool products out there across different industries, but it's extremely rare unless you work for Miro, Figma, or some one of the other design tools. Let's say you don't get the chance to really build something that you're going to be using on a daily basis. And I think certainly the community perspective, the Miroverse. I think trying to build a separate community has been so effective with products out there at the moment. If they can build an internal community as well, it's so effective in building, in increasing the user base, increasing obviously revenue as a product as well, but just generally building that community out is certainly a really big aspect for sure. Now look, obviously Miro isn't the only design tool, collaborative tool out there. There's plenty that are existing. There's plenty of who have tried and maybe failed. I think there are certainly, since Miro and since other innovative products within design have come out, there's a lot of other companies, people, entrepreneurs trying to build similar tools that are going to do the same thing. So what do you think differentiates Miro currently from other design tools in the collaboration space, let's say?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I must tell you, Matt, everyone is asking me this question. Like, it's so often that, direct design that we're having a conversation always say, okay, why you and not Figma, for example, why you and not Neuro? And indeed, right, like 2 years ago, collaboration space wasn't the sector of the business, right? There were a few people like, a few companies like Miro and Miro pretty much, right? That was it. And now all of a sudden, that's like the entire industry, right? Microsoft is going in, Atlassian is going in, Figma has released the Fig Jam. The biggest differentiation of Miro, as I see, and how we position ourselves as well, as I already said, we're not a design tool, right? We're not a tool just for designers. And I'll give you an example. Miro is being used by academia. And I personally got to actually speak to some of the professors that actually involved Miro into the flow of the education of their subjects or whatsoever. And so they said it was so amazing to see that the students with literally zero experience of using any collaboration tools, any activity tools before that they would just jump in without any onboarding, and they would just start collaborating and moving those stickers together, right? And really kind of finding it not only useful, but also fun, because fun is a big part of the connection to Miro, right? And you can say that by how it looks like and how it feels like. Not only academia as well, we're quite proud actually that Miro is being used as an enterprise account by Pfizer, right? So you can also see that in such serious and very, heavy sciences and heavy sectors of the business, people also find the usefulness of Miro, right? And you find the use case to actually, elaborate on the value of Miro. And so we can also tell that, to some extent, the Pfizer vaccine probably has been kind of, created with the help of Miro, right? Mm-hmm. Probably they've been just, just brainstorming or looking for something there. So that's pretty great, because if you've ever tried to send the link of any other collaboration to like Figma, for example, or Figma, right, to anyone who hasn't been involved in the cross-functional team, you will see that people do struggle, right? The experience is not necessarily as accessible, right? And accessibility is a huge topic that we are speaking about today, right now, because we want to make sure that, out of 1.5 billion knowledge employees, there is none of the people who can actually not be onboarded to Miro and actually, gain all the value from this product. And so we're quite proud that we are seeing that lots of people from people team, marketing, customer success, whatsoever, they actually jumping together, creating their team spaces and collaborating.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think, obviously, when I speak to people about Miro or whether they've used Miro before, generally, yes, I think it's most commonly associated with design. But in saying that, it's clear to see that you guys have managed to attract an audience that is completely outside of design now in Pfizer, and obviously in academia as well. It's clear to see, and I think a big topic I spoke about with Alex to put in my last podcast was, how we're talking about fintech specifically, and why, the new fintech businesses or products are better than the traditional ones. And he said that, the key point is about simplifying the difficult tasks, or making it accessible and simplifying things that are quite complex. And I think that's clearly what Miro have done as well, is simplified for people that have never had, have never used tools like this, or been able to, as you mentioned, in universities and things like that. The ability to jump on and not really have to have a long onboarding, or be able to take time to get used to the tool is key. In terms of Miro, a question I wanted to ask you, Lena, was obviously, you probably speak to, as well as I do, you speak to candidates all the time, but you're specifically talking about Miro every time you speak to candidates. Now we know how competitive the design market is currently, and there's every candidate you speak to, certainly at the top level, they have many things they're potentially considering. I think the more passive candidates who might not be looking at all, might not really be actively looking, and might not be speaking to other people, but generally they'll know people in the community, or working at Meta or WhatsApp, the biggest companies out there. How do you sell Miro to them?
Yeah, that's a very good question, right? I think, truly translating the love for product, your love for product and the team's love for product is one of the things that I always do, and we always do, because indeed, if you're not passionate about the product space, you just won't have all the fun that you can, right? And I think, just the environment of Miro is so passionate, so driven, and so full of love, because love is indeed the word that everyone says when we speak about our product. So this is something that we try to translate truly, and kind of, showing what kind of impact on that product they can have, right? And what is their Miro journey within the product development, right? Because lots of recruiters and hiring managers actually are underappreciating a lot, showing and truly translating that specific person's impact, right? They're trying to fit people into the role that may not necessarily be fitting them, right? And not playing on the strengths. And so this is what we're trying to avoid, right? We always say that Miro journey should be the journey of your lifetime, right? Either it's a starting point to the company that you want to go afterwards, the starting point for your own business that you want to really learn all the, good things and to-dos and all the dawns of the business as well, whatever you prefer, but we want you to have that, amazing start of your career with Miro, right? And so this is what we're trying to translate. At the same time, I think the community, I'm also I'm hesitant to call it a team, because it's truly a community. There is so much passion and so much collaboration kind of, just driving throughout, Amsterdam office and Berlin office, and also Yerevan hub, where all the cross-functional teams and all the designers also spread across and sit together. I think design rituals and truly kind of, this strong passion for knowledge sharing and truly improving, right? Given that direct but very well thought through feedback, right? We're always trying to make sure that as we hire every person who comes into the company, not only kind of, meeting that amazing level of craft that we have, but actually raising it, right? So each and every hire, you will see those people coming in from the biggest and the best companies in the world. And there is always something to learn. It doesn't matter from which business you came from. It doesn't matter how many years you've been working on, right? On some products or on your leadership skills or whatever. There is always something for you to learn. There is always something for you to take from your community and design team as well. And I think the third thing as well that's very great is truly, kind of the opportunity of attaching your name to the Miro name, in regards that so many designers from our team actually go into the conferences, go into the podcast, go into the meetup, and they always bring Miro as an example, and they show how they're using this powerful tool to actually make the products, maybe even other products, better, right? And I think it's so great that Miro is truly the platform for them to kind of, upskill their, these parts of the skills that they have it.
Yeah, definitely. I think a key point you made, the first point there, is obviously trying to create the best journey for the people that are going to join. I think a common mistake that the companies make, certainly when they have high expectations of the people they want to bring in, is they have a very strong or strict definition of what they want this person to do for them, right? And I think we're in a world now where the best people, they want the flexibility, they want the freedom, they want the ownership in their role. They want to be able to paint their own or pave their own pathway into the future that they want. And if if companies want the best people, they're going to have to accept that, they're going to have to really work together with these people and to get them where they want to be, because there are so many other businesses that might be doing this, i.e. Miro. I think I had the same conversation with Alex last week, because we spoke about how to build a successful design team. And a lot of it was about understanding the person's motivations more so than what you need them to do. Because that's how you obtain them in the first place, and that's how you keep them there as well. But yeah, no, it's interesting to know your personal opinion, obviously your opinion on how you sell the company to people, because you speak to some of the biggest people from the biggest companies, and they've probably got options coming out left, right, and center that they could potentially consider. But it's good to know how you differentiate yourself. Now, the next question I wanted to ask you, Lena, was how do you really at Miro build a feeling of belonging internally for UX research and also product design?
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot, still to be done, as the team has grown, as I said, right? Like when I joined, it was like a team of 15 designers.
Yeah.
45 of us. It's pretty great to see. I think one of the biggest things that we are going for right now, and what we've been doing remotely, but now doing a little bit more in the hybrid mode, is that we're going for the hub days. And so the idea of the hub day is not that, okay, come back to the office, sit at your chair, and then go back home, and that's it. Because surely, at Miro, we see a big value of culture, and culture is the strongest asset actually that we have here internally. And I must tell you, you could really tangibly, feel it, how strong it is. Yeah. Powerful it is, and it's like one of the most amazing feelings in the world. And so what we're doing right now is truly, especially for design and user research team, we are defining what are the activities that we need to kind of, bring in to make sure that those hub days really have this positive impact on the design community within Miro, right? Be it design sprints, be it, some of the certain workshops, offsites, or anything like that, where people really have this very creative face-to-face time together, when they don't just sit at the desks, but really kind of, sharing ideas, sketching together by using Miro.
Yeah, I was going to say,
We keep using Miro. And definitely, having that opportunity for them to come together and get to know each other as well, right? Because quite often you also see a person, through Zoom for 5 months, and then you don't recognize each other in the office. That exactly, does happen a lot. But I also think, the biggest kind of step that we also have been doing so far, and we have been hiring those leaders that truly understand how to bring the team together, right? Because 10 people who reporting in one person is not necessarily a team, right? So a group of people becomes a team, right? And so truly for us, it's very important that this leader can translate the vision, where we're going, how this specific person is contributing to that North Star goal or the OKR of the quarter, right? What is the impact of this specific person on the business, right? And we truly, very important for us is to quantify the impact of design on the business, right? Not just say, oh, that's a beautiful wireframe, people like, right? Say, okay, this is what's going to happen if we implement that. And I think this is pretty amazing because we got to hire some of the most amazing design leaders from great companies like Facebook, Zalando in Berlin, like Microsoft, right? And so on and so forth. And so the list goes on. And it's definitely pretty amazing to see how those people really bring all the designers together and finding very special ways for very special kind of, hubs, different hubs to bring them together and really kind of, create this feeling of belonging, because indeed there is no one solution fits all, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
For designers from different product streams, they're so versatile and so different and so creative. We also need to be creative with the ways how they actually come together.
Yeah, definitely. I think diversity in design teams is so key, isn't it? Because not only from different backgrounds, from different genders, everything that comes into diversity, but diversity in different product streams, as you mentioned. I think people coming from different companies working in different ways is so key to building a very successful design team. As long as everyone can collaborate effectively, as long as there's not too many egos in the team, of course. I think it is the key to success for sure. I think moving on to our next topic, Lena, in terms of Miro. Look, I mean, as you well said, there's people coming from the best companies around the world to join Miro. I know from speaking to you directly, design craft is obviously a big thing that you look for, and a very high level. I know you mentioned your pathway into design, and you got to, from speaking to hiring managers, and got to really learn what a good portfolio looks like, what good design craft looks like from viewing portfolios and things like that. So yeah, for everyone listening, I think I ask most people on this podcast a question, certainly hiring managers, of course, but what are you generally looking for when someone sends their CV, someone sends their portfolio in? What really grabs your attention about a person from their portfolio, let's say?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I'm being asked about it quite often, even from the hiring managers while we're aligning, right? Just to make sure, we all mean the same things while saying good portfolio, because design is so subjective, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
What's good for one isn't good for another one, but there are definitely some of the basics that I think, can be met. First of all, we're definitely looking at the structure of the portfolio, right? We don't mind which format it is. Also, frankly speaking, who has time now in the
I agree. I agree.
Portfolio? So we also, we're very realistic with what we can get from the candidate, right? So be it PDF or a Figma file or whatever website, we're absolutely flexible on that. But we're definitely looking for a problem definition, right? So like, what was the problem space?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
We want to see the clear process, right? Your specific involvement in this process, right? We want to see, did you conduct some user research, right? What is that data that you base your kind of solution on? We definitely want to see a little bit of the collaboration, however it's presented, right? Like, oh, we did the workshop, right? Or I asked for the opinion of the engineers. For us, it's very important that a designer is able, to build actual designs that are scalable and visible from the technical perspective, and not just once again, beautiful button, let's just right? Yeah. And we definitely want to see also a conclusion, right? Some of the next steps, right? Like some of the learnings or whatsoever. So this is kind of the structure of the case study that we're looking for. But honestly, the biggest part for us as well is, seeing a little bit of the user research data. We definitely want to make sure that the person is capable of conducting it. We do want to see some screens, but if their case study is just filled with screens, it gives us nothing, right?
Yeah.
Have you taken all these, parts of the screens from some other design systems, or have you built it? Or maybe you have an internal design system. Those are the things that we definitely pay attention to. And lastly, and I think this is the biggest fact, right? You can be a great designer and it still may not be a match, because to be the leader on the market, which we are, we look for the most creative craft, right? We want to open up a portfolio and just, see something that we've never seen before, right?
Yeah.
Some of the interesting designs, some of the interesting color combinations, some of the interesting fonts. It can be anything, honestly, right? We're so open-minded, but we definitely want to see that part of the creativity that could really kind of, bring Miro to the very next level.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with all your points. The reason why I laughed about the screenshots part was because I've had this conversation probably across every single episode that I've had. It's such a common mistake that I see people make. I made a video on LinkedIn about what needs to be in a portfolio and pretty much mirrored everything you said there. I think the difference is obviously the standing out part. I think obviously, as you said, design is so subjective. I think something that looks amazing to me on a screen might look completely different to you. It might look awful to you. But yeah, I think certainly the screenshots part, certainly the breaking down the full process part is such a key thing that everyone, every designer should do if they're applying to a job. I think unless you know the company, unless you know people from there or have worked from people from there, and there's quite an easy way in, I think every designer should at least be able to structure their portfolio in a way that's clear, that defines as you said, the problem that they were solving, the discovery phase in detail, what the decisions were based off of, what actual involvement they had in the specific works. I think that's another key problem that people don't highlight enough is what did you actually do for this particular part? Because they might mention it, they might mention what happened after, but we don't know whether they worked on it, whether it was a team of people that worked on it, how much involvement they specifically had in that. And I think what every designer who, if they're listening to this, or what every designer should do is put themselves in the hiring manager's shoes, put themselves in the position of, right, if I looked at my portfolio from a hiring manager's perspective right now, would I hire myself? And I think a lot of the time people would probably say no, not really, because I don't really understand what I've actually done. And I think I completely get when you mention, the best people on the market at the moment, or the best people generally in design, might not have time to really keep their portfolio up to date or have all their up to date work on there. But from speaking to hiring managers in the market, no one's asking for everything. No one wants to see your, if you've worked in 10 plus years in the design market, they don't want to see your, full 10 years of work. They just want to see maybe one or two selected case studies as up to date as possible. But maybe your favorite ones, or maybe the best things you've worked on, and really see what you did there and understand you as a designer and how you worked in that. But yeah, there are certainly common mistakes that I see in portfolios for sure, as we mentioned. So other than what we've discussed so far, is there anything else that you think designers could do to attract the attention of the likes of Miro or similar companies? Because, as we mentioned, Meta, Microsoft, companies like this, I hear a lot of people say, I'm in the process with these guys, and I'm applying to them and interviewing with them, which is great. I think everyone should try. I think even if you don't get the job, I think it's a learning process, because, you're trying to work for the best companies. But a lot of the time they fail. They don't know why. But what do you think designers could potentially do better to attract the interest, or maybe do better in the interview process with the likes of yourselves or those similar companies?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think it's not only on designers who are going through the processes, but also on the companies who lead them, right? And it's always a balance. But if I were a design candidate, or what I could suggest to design candidates, first of all, as we've spoken about, right, like a portfolio, as you said, and I so agree with you, 1000%. I do not need to see a portfolio of 6 case studies across the last 10 years. I will not be checking all of them, first of all, right? No,
exactly. Yeah.
The 2 most recent, or most impactful, or most technical, most complex. This is more than enough, right? Just spend time on one amazing case study and you will be seen, right? Clean CV as well. To be honest, sometimes I open up a CV of a designer and I cannot see information. I'm like, well, this is so user unfriendly, right?
Yeah. Exactly. I think some designers don't understand a lot of the time that it puts hiring managers off. If your CV is not presentable, user friendly, or your portfolio is not user friendly, then no matter what else you can provide or how well you do in the interview, sometimes it's that those are the things they look at. And as you said, no one has time to look through these things. I think a lot what people don't understand is that hiring managers and recruiters like ourselves, we might review tens to hundreds of portfolios per position that we're looking for. And unfortunately, people don't have the time to just assume that you're a good designer based off where you work or something like that. But yeah, sorry, I interrupted. Go back to what you were saying.
For sure. Absolutely. And I'm so aligned with you. And I'm not saying to make it perfect, right? Because once again, it's a very hot market right now. And indeed the companies need the talent. But let's remember Pareto rules, 80-20, right? Put a little bit more effort in it. Make it last, but better, right?
Yeah, of course.
Give it to a friend and let them read, right? They look research, right? It's so easy to make those things. Second of all, I think what's very important is sometimes the candidate do not prepare for the interviews, right? So truly, if you didn't get the focus of the interview, right? What is the next round? Ask for it, right? We all people, recruiters also people. Sometimes you work with a very professional, experienced recruiter. Sometimes you work with a very junior recruiter who might have not received the focus of this round, and they don't feel obligated to actually go and practice or find out and give it to you and brief you on that round. So definitely, asking about that. And the third thing, this is a little bit of the secret, strategy that I'm super happy to share with anyone. But I think, the world is so well connected, right? We're all on LinkedIn. We all have lots of people in the network working in literally pretty much any company of the world, right? So I think not going, probably even directly and applying for a job, but finding out someone who's working in this company and getting a little bit more of the understanding, what is going on there, getting connected to the hiring manager. Even personal, right? This is such a strong personal touch. It shows your dedication. It shows that you're crisp on the ways of solving your problems and finding those ways, right? And I think when candidates do that, plus put the effort a little bit in the application materials, that just makes such a huge difference.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think preparing for an interview is so important. I think sometimes egos might get in the way. I think sometimes lack of interest is probably a part of it as well. I think certainly it matters how, similar to me and you, Lena, I think every position you've interviewed for in your life, from the outside looking in, if it's not massively interesting, you won't commit as much time into something that does look really interesting. But I think preparation is so key. And I certainly agree. I think thinking outside the box, because you hear so many things on LinkedIn about people. I applied to 30 jobs and only heard back from 2, or something like that. And whilst I think that's bad, I think it's a bad statistic. I can understand why, because they have so many applications going through, and as we just discussed, if your CV and portfolio don't necessarily stand out, then it's probably the reason why you're getting put to the side, even if you are a very good designer. But yeah, I think preparing for the interview is so key, and I think connecting with people on LinkedIn is so easy. We're all connected. I think statistically, I think it's like 3.7 or 4 connections now, so you can reach anyone in the world essentially, just by knowing 3.7 or 4 people, or being able to go through that people. So it's certainly not impossible to reach the people that you want to. I think if there's genuinely an opportunity that you're really, really interested in, i.e. Miro, why not, instead of applying directly to start off with, why not connect with someone like yourself? Why not connect with one of the directors of design or something like that, and just say, I've seen the position open. I'm more than happy to apply for it, but I wanted to ask you a bit more about the company, learn a bit more about it first, and things like that. People aren't going to shy away from that. People aren't going to be offended that you've asked them those types of questions, because they can see that you're genuinely interested and want to try a different approach to the typical ones, for sure. Now, lastly, just wanted to ask you in a little bit more depth, steering away from obviously the initial application process, the initial CV and portfolio. So you've assessed that all looks good. I know we said about preparing for the interview as much as possible. I think some companies are a bit afraid sometimes to, certainly from my perspective, what I've experienced is I asked them a bit more. So can you just provide me a bit more context about what this interview stage is going to look like? And they say, well, this might be cheating a little bit, because we want to, we want the candidates to sort of be reactive of what we're saying. And I don't agree with that, because I think, look, we're not sitting here giving them a script of, oh, these are the exact questions that they're going to ask you and these are the answers you should give. It's just more of, okay, this is going to be a more deep dive into the leadership side of things, or whatever it might be, just so they have some context and compare better. You're going to get much better output from the candidate if you give them the context of that. But yeah, more specifically for the interview process, how do you guys, certainly at Miro, throughout that process, assess whether someone's going to be the right person for you during that interview process. But alternatively, I know we had a discussion last time we spoke about, well, we know this candidate's great, so we have to sort of flip it. And how much do we actually have to sell to this candidate now?
Yeah. Oh God, it's a very good question. To be honest, this like the point of selling to the candidate instead of just assessing them. I think this is something that lots of companies will have to learn a very hard way, a very hard way, because they will not be able to hire anyone. Because to be honest, I personally had a situation when the candidate said, hey, it's been 3 rounds. I've done my best. You like me. I see that. Now, guys, you have to try and convince me that I like you. And I was like, such a strong mindset. And it's just so true, right? Like, this is our time to start selling to you. But basically, to be honest, the difference of our hiring process and probably some other companies' process, it's not that the recruiter does first kind of, building up the funnel and then screening CV and then screening candidates and passing to the hiring manager. This is the team effort from the day one, right? So the hiring managers and recruiters sourcing together all the time, calibration for 100% of the profiles, right? Then afterwards, after the recruiter screen the candidate, we again align together with the design team, right? We never proceed because we're very thoughtful of the candidate's time and we are very thoughtful of our time. And then afterwards, after our conversation, we don't go into the craft rounds as it's quite often happens, right? But we go into the hiring manager call. And so basically recruiter call and the hiring manager call, they can be either the assessment calls or one of them is the assessment call, the other one is the sell call, or both of them are the sell calls, right? And it really depends, indeed, as you've said, like depends on how much interest the candidate has, how passive the candidate is, right? Because some of the candidates you're lying to, it takes months to engage them.
Exactly.
And I still have candidates who I reached out in the first month of my Miro time, May 2021. And just now they say, all right, maybe let's start, because I said 10 follow-ups throughout this time. So it really is important. But for us, selling is not just saying, oh, this is so great to join Miro, this is the great company, right? But I think one of the major kind of things that we are providing is really the strong insight in the growth and the potential of the companies, right? Because we're not just building the collaboration tool here, we are building the next generational company. We're 100+ million customers in the following few years. And then afterwards, in a few years, you're going to look back at Miro and say, well, this is the second Microsoft, or the second Atlassian, or the second Salesforce, or whatsoever. And I think that's very important for us to show how this person can potentially just contribute to us, kind of, getting there with us as well. Because indeed, there are plenty of rounds afterwards to assess them. Let's face it, right? We go for the craft round afterwards. We don't send any tasks. We do the portfolio deep dive, and also we do the task on Miro board. So, it's very time efficient. It really helps us to understand what is the craft, what is the visual skills from the portfolio that they've created, right? And once again, it's the latest and it's the most high impact studies. We understand the product thinking and business acumen, things like that. And then actually, as we go into the cross-functional rounds, again, there is a big choice, right? Is it the sell call or is it the assessment call, right? Because indeed, we need to make sure that, the design also feels very excited to work with those people. And afterwards, as the leadership rounds come in, once again, we're in front of the choice, right? Are we selling or are we assessing? And it doesn't have to be either. Sometimes it's half of the call assessing, and then afterwards we don't even sell. We don't like to call it selling. We just transparent about the potential of the company.
Presenting the facts in the best light. I would say.
Exactly. But pretty much, selling. And so, it goes all the way long. And to be honest, as a recruiter, I meet with the candidate after each and every round, or almost after every round. And once again, right, we always do this temperature check. How are you feeling? What are the green flags? And continue to sell right afterwards, passing that information to the next round and saying, those are the flags that the candidate. Can you please address it? And I think this is so important when the hiring team works as a team rather than with the hiring manager.
Yeah, well, I wish I could work with you guys, to be honest. Because the process you just described is literally what I try and tell every client I work with that it should look like, because it streamlines it becomes so much more efficient, it becomes so much more, you're so much more aligned the whole way through, because things change, right? Things can change over a course of a day. Someone could interview with you one day, absolutely love it, and then the next day they speak to their partner, for instance, and their partner's not a massive fan, and that can change. But if you don't have that, if you don't build those relationships with the candidates that you're having in the process, you don't know that that's happened. And it can, you guys can be really excited about this person and be, this our next hire, really confident on this one, and then it falls out for whatever reason. But I really like the point that you made about how collaborative you are with the hiring manager. I think talent acquisition itself is the core of building a successful business, right? The people you hire is how successful you're going to be. The success of your hires is how successful your company's going to be at the end goal. And I think a lot of companies disregard how important it is to build such a defined collaborative process with the recruiter and with the hiring manager. Those relationships are what the key to the success of the hiring moving forwards. If you don't have that collaborative nature there, a lot of candidates can fall out of the process for different reasons. A lot of things can go wrong during the process if you don't have that successful relationship. And although I'm an external party, I try and build that type of relationship that you have with your hiring managers with the hiring managers I work with, because it's so much more successful in that sense. But yeah, well, look, I think we've covered off everything we wanted to. But yeah, look, I've loved speaking with you, Lena. I think hopefully a lot of people that watch this will get a really good insight into what it takes to really work or want to work with a company like Miro. And hopefully it helps people understand, what really has to go into it. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed yourself too, Lena. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Matt. I've had the best time. Thank you so much. Great questions. And I really hope it's very useful for many people, for sure, to get to know us a little bit better.
For sure. And hopefully you get some good candidates off the back of this as well.
Sure.
I'll be taking referral fees though. But yeah, no, look, again, thanks, Lena. Have a great day, and I'll catch up with you soon.